We're starting just a little late. Sorry about that. But thank you so much to Adriana for her help. Here we are. I'm in Arizona in the US. It's dark, but I'm excited to join you. Today I'm going to be talking about making your slides more interactive with Peardeck. And as you should know, is that I work at a K through 12 charter school, and I'm the faculty professional development chair there. And so Peardeck is something we've introduced this year in this social distance, long distance learning environment. For a lot of our teachers, they've never taught online, they've never taught with a lot of technology. It's actually not incredibly encouraged at the school that I'm at. And so this was a tool that got a lot of them very excited and helped them feel like they were more in control of their classrooms and that they could control the engagement with their students. So I'm going to talk about the specific places that I see Peardeck is helpful. This is for beginners. So if you are a Peardeck pro and you have all kinds of ideas to share, please throw them in the chat. But this really is for people trying to decide whether Peardeck is something that they want to use. I should also mention Peardeck does have a very generous 3-month free subscription. So if you want to try it out, you can try it out and see if you like it, get to know it, et cetera, and hopefully this presentation will help you decide that. So like a lot of people, I have all kinds of different things I use when I'm trying to decide how to put a lesson together. My sort of main mantra is, what do I want the students to do today, right? It's kind of less what am I going to do, but what are the students going to do? And so I have multiple kinds of apps that I use, and Peardeck is just one of them. So for example, I teach a literature course, and if I'm going to do like an introduction to a novel where I discuss background or author bio or anything like that, I might use Prezi, which is a fairly dynamic presentation app, but it doesn't have a lot of check-ins with the students, and that's okay. I'm just saying, hey, why Sargasso Sea, 1966, this is what you need to know. But Peardeck is really nice because it allows me to do that check-in. What's important to remember about Peardeck is you can design immediate individual check-ins with your students in order to focus their attention, check their comprehension, measure engagement, or gather feedback during a lecture or activity. And we're going to actually go through a lot of these right now. So what do I mean by immediate? Peardeck is set up so that you can watch your students respond in real time and you can provide that feedback immediately. Now, I teach writing, and all the research on writing instruction is showing that if we can take on more of a coaching aspect, right? So if we can sort of watch the students do the writing and reply to them as immediately as possible, we're actually in a better place, or they're in a better place to improve their writing than sort of our typical, hey, everybody, we're going to write a paragraph today. You all write the paragraph. I might look over the shoulder of 5 or 6 students and be able to offer some kind of feedback, and then I'm going to collect all of those, and then I'm going to, in the next 24 to 48 hours, read through them. Maybe I'll make comments, and then I'll hand them back, or maybe I'll say something to the class maybe 2 to 3 days later. Basically, that's a lot of work, and that's not as effective as that ability to coach and to watch them write. And what I love about Peardeck is that I can do that very much, and we'll take a look at what that looks like in a second. The responses are also individual, so each student is going to respond to a prompt, and you will see it. They will not see what other students write, and that can be really great. One, the kind of question you might be asking, they may not feel necessarily comfortable saying in front of peers. And you can also sort of check in with the student and see where they are at that moment. Now, like a lot of teachers, being able to sort of have your students take a look at sort of what other people are saying, right? Have other students model for maybe your struggling students how to access or interpret information. That's always a really, really great thing, right? But sometimes you just need to know, like, where is that student right now and where is every student right now without them necessarily echoing their peers. And so this is really helpful in those situations. So what does it look like? I hope you can see this. Essentially, every student is going to be writing for you, or they'll be responding in some way. This is the text version or the text response. What you can see is just like in a normal classroom, right? You have your very quick students who right away know what they're going to say, and they're going to fill in stuff as much as they can. You'll notice that if you look at my responses here, I have a student up top. She is, she's writing in paragraphs her response. And then I have other students who maybe may not be as sure and may not have necessarily the comprehension that she has, but I can see where they're at, right? And I can see them doing this in real time, which is, again, so helpful. This Peardeck also allows you to focus attention. So you can drop websites into Peardeck and direct your students to certain websites, which is good if you don't necessarily want to send your students all off on a jaunt, or you may not want to expose them to the entire website, right? You want something very specific at that website, so you can sort of corral them if you like. So for instance, this is an example of, we were doing, my 15-year-old, we're doing a satire unit, and we were just going through satire examples and tell me what it means, et cetera, et cetera. And this is from The Onion, which is a site I love, but I don't necessarily want to let my students go on The Onion, right, in class. So here we are. I'm going to drop that link into Peardeck, and we'll go there in a little more controlled fashion. Peardeck is really great for checking comprehension, as any teacher wants to be able to do, and you can ask a variety of formative questions. I would also like to say, though, I have used Peardeck in a quiz fashion, or more of a summative way, where I basically sort of like, okay, you were responsible for this reading. I'm going to put reading questions in Peardeck and see what you actually understood, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that's really fun about Peardeck is that it does have multiple choice. It has different kinds of questions that you can use, and you can watch your students sort of answer in real time. And if it's helpful to them, or if this is what you want to do, you can then, of course, respond to them. So, oh, I see a lot of people are picking C. I want you to think about this, right? And then you can watch them think and change their answer if need be. Measuring engagement. And this might just be, are you actually with me? Is there something slightly kinetic we can do that that will get you back in the game of our lesson? And so, for example, they have a drawing thing, and this was a lecture that we were doing on American imperialism and colonialism, and we had read a chapter on the Philippines. And so just to test everybody, I said, can you American students find me the Philippines, right? And so it's sort of, oh, the Philippines. I think they all Googled it. I'm going to be honest. I don't think they could have found that for me. But it's just a nice sort of, oh, I can do that. I can check in and see that they're engaged and following along. And lastly, of course, you can ask for feedback. One of the things I do with Peardeck is I actually ask, okay, so tell me how things have gone in this unit. I don't know about any of the rest of you, but this crazy year is a little crazier because I have 2 new preps that I've never taught before. And so I'm introducing sort of all these new assignments and all these new units and organizations of material that I haven't done before. And one of the things, of course, that I want to know is how is it going? And I can ask those questions. We can have a little sort of discussion, assessment discussion of my performance or how things felt for them without it becoming a mob, right? Like, without a bunch of students going, you never did this or whatever, however I let them down, right? They will, of course, be able to tell me, give me some feedback that's specific to them. Okay, so I'm just going to show you, for you newbies, what those questions look like. I've been doing this presentation using Peardeck, and I've been sharing the student presentation version. I dropped in the chat, I'll do it again, a link to the Peardeck that I'm at. Oh, maybe I can't do it again. Let me try. So if you want to jump on the Peardeck and experience it yourself, I think you'll be able to do that, unless I said you had to sign in. I might not be able to do it with my settings. I didn't think about that. I have one of the settings you can do is everybody has to sign in, and one of the settings you can do is anybody with a link. And so for my classes, it's always you have to sign in because I have to keep everybody sort of accountable, as it were. Okay, so those 3 words, ethos, pathos, logos, that this is for my 14-year-olds. We're going through a very simple comprehension check. We're talking about the rhetorical triangle. So I'll just ask them. We just went over, actually, this is from our classical oration, organization, essay writing. So the narration does what? And they can click on this. Now I'm going to show you what I see. So let me share that. So over here, okay. So you should be able to see this tiny little guy right here. You can see, right, that people are filling in answers. And in fact, if I fill in my answer, ethos, you'll now see several people have filled in ethos. And if you run your thing over it, it'll tell you who are the people that have answered that way, right? And then, of course, if they change their mind, nope, I meant pathos, really, I meant pathos, you can see that they changed their mind. And of course, this real live feedback or this real, input is really helpful to you to talk to them, right? Okay, another one that, another kind of question, of course, is the text question. This is the focus. It's going to take, there we go. So maybe I've been talking about the sublime with my students and I want to take them to this artwork, but I don't necessarily want to let them loose on that, that website. So here we are. I can show it to them. They can look at it on their own screens. So that's one function of Peardeck. Okay, now here's the text one. So what students see is a place to answer, and they can text any way they want. And I often tell them, go ahead and just give me phrases. I don't need a whole sentence if we're just doing sort of thought experiments. So I might say, oh, disposable masks are a challenge for environmental blah, blah, blah. So that's what the student sees, and that's how the student interacts. But this is what I see, right? And I can scroll down and see what everybody is saying and how they're saying it. I set things up so then I can respond to them, right? Sometimes if I just want to encourage more students to engage with the Peardeck, I might just say, oh, Melissa, you're doing great. I love that answer. Oh, Shannon, that's really good. I'd never thought about that, right? Just these sort of positive responses to the students that are participating. But I might also say, oh, Heather, I like where you're headed, but can you give me more details, right? And so I can sort of prompt them myself, which is really, I think, helpful for them, right? Okay, so the next one is, or the next functionality is one my students wish I would do more of, and this is the drawing one. So for instance, they can, circle something, right? A little kinetic action for them to do to get them involved. And what do I see? I can see anybody who's doing the same thing and scroll through those. I can put it in a grid and sort of glance at all of them at one time, right? So that's really helpful for me. And again, even my big kids are like, why don't we do the draw ones more often, Dr. Bigley? I'm sorry, I will try harder. Okay, and then of course there's the draggable, and I'm using that draggable here as more of a multiple choice, and the students can just take a hold of it, put it where they want, and again, you can watch that in live real time. The answer is Martian, just so you know. Okay, so one of the things I think when I first was talking to my faculty about using Peardeck, a lot of them were like, well, it seems like it's for little kids, or it seems like, et cetera, et cetera. Any question that you can come up with, right? Or any kind of exercise, practice exercise that you might do is really transferable in a lot of ways to Peardeck. So for instance, this right here is a concision exercise. I wanted to introduce concision to my students as they prepared their last draft of a paper. So I just pulled stuff out of their papers and I taught them some principles from concision, and I said, let's do this together. And again, you can say to them, just find the 3 verbs that are in progressive tense and then make them more concise and immediate. And you might get some kids say, oh, argue is one and represent is another. I don't know what the other one is. And then, of course, you can prompt or reward or aid in the way that you need. But it doesn't have to be that simple. So, for instance, I often use Peardeck for a poetry discussion. Now, believe it or not, in high school, a lot of kids aren't that excited about discussing poetry and may, in fact, feel somewhat shy about discussing poetry. So, give them the poem and then ask the questions through Peardeck in that individualized, private manner so that they can respond without feeling like people are listening to them talk about, say, emotions, which they may not feel like they want to talk about. So again, this is a higher level question, and I would use the text box for it, and the students could respond at the level that I want them to, or if they're not, I can prompt them again. So one of the great things about Peardeck is that it does archive your sessions. And this is excellent data for you, right? It's great data for you, it's great data for admin, it's great data for parents. So for instance, earlier this year, I noticed one of my students, 2/3 of the way through a lesson, might, just suddenly be gone. I'm not sure what's happening. I contact parents, what's going on? Oh, and they let me know about, their student is having headaches. And so 2/3 is about as much as I can expect. Okay, well, that's good to know. And it's something that I was able to notice through Peardeck, right? The other thing, of course, is you can go back and see how students did, right? So if you're thinking, should I be moving on? Or you're looking at some assignment and you're like, they didn't quite grab this the way I wanted to, you can go back to the Peardeck and see, well, how were they responding in that original Peardeck, right? So really great data and excellent. You can pull it up at any time. And this is what that might look like. I don't think you can read that at all, but you can just click on your old sessions and open them up and see how students did. It's very, very useful. So what does setup look like? And I think this is a really important question. So for me, I'm usually I have lots of things open. One of them is our course management platform. One of them is the browser with student presentation, much like I'm doing with you right now. I'm showing you what the student would see or engage with. And then I have that teacher dashboard open. Now, why do I have all these three things open? It's so that I can talk to the students and they can hear me as I present. Now, Peardeck does have an option where you can set it up and you can let the students go through the Peardeck by themselves asynchronously, and that's useful. I use that when students have missed class. I will create an asynchronous Peardeck for them and then throw that to them so that they can use it. Yes, there's an immersive reader now, and they have more functionality. They've been adding functionality in adding voice, but for our class periods, it's really actually helpful for us to have these things open. Why am I sharing the student screen through the course management platform? Well, we are rural, and so I often have students who can choose. I can be in Peardeck or I can be in the course management platform. Which one am I going to choose? Well, we'll do it all in Teams, Microsoft Teams, and hopefully you can participate in that way. So the students are hearing me through their lecture. They have a browser open, and they're responding in that student presentation browser. And then sometimes even I might say, oh, come back to Teams and say something in the chat or raise your hand, etc. We still make use of that. So the first time you practice, it may feel a little overwhelming, but we're all sort of pros now, right? Thank goodness. Okay. This brings me to one of the questions that I think is actually really important. Is Peardeck discipline specific? So when I talk to the different teachers at my school, our language teachers, our French and Spanish teachers especially, are loving Peardeck. It allows them to do these very discrete, very immediate practice sessions, right? And using Teams as the vocal, they can, do conversations, they can do reading, they can do writing. It's very helpful. Science and history teachers are using it as a review platform, right? So they've already gone over a lot of information with the students, and now as they prepare for maybe exam, they'll use Peardeck. You've seen how I use Peardeck in English. The holdouts seem to be engineering and math, and what they tell me is that that drawing function is basically the only thing they really use, and they might use it as a whiteboard, but in fact, they're very interested in just using a whiteboard. So I don't want to say it's discipline specific, but judging from what's happening in my school, that's kind of how it's breaking down in the upper grades. The younger grades are using it, I think they're using a lot more of the drawing. And they're just using a lot more of the draggables. So they've got their own thing going on. Okay, so Peardeck Power Up. Thanks for that. I will take a look. Let me take a look. Oh, this is it. Woo! Questions at this point, comments, snide remarks. Essentially, we are really excited and happy about Peardeck. Our school is deciding for the teachers that use it consistently to fund their subscriptions, which is really great. And, I use it in every single course, at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, right? It is incredibly helpful. And as I said, for our teachers who are just getting into and are sort of have felt really lost with online distance learning, it has helped them feel like they really can control and they have more options within that experience and to keep the students engaged. So that's what I've got. Thank you so much for enjoying this. The chat looks like you guys were having fun, so I'm glad. And let me know if you have any questions. From Shannon, it saved my life. I have felt that way too. Often I felt like, okay, we're going to do this in Peardeck, because then I know I've got feedback from them. I have questions. We can move forward. We can practice this, right? It has often felt like Peardeck saves the day. Okay, whew, I talk a lot. I'll be quiet. Thanks, you guys. Have a good one. My handle is, yes, thank you, Ariana, at HK Bigley. Happy to collaborate, happy to ask questions of each other. That would be fantastic.